What's up, YouTube? This is Remo Loon, your host today, and today's subject will be about piston pin offset. So why piston pin offset? Well, the reason is because there's been debate for a long time when it comes to piston pin offset. A famous guy called Smoky Unix said that, and it's even found in, I've learned this, it's even found in the Chrysler manuals for performance reasons, to take the pistons out of the engines and flip them around and to give you more performance. The first time I heard that, I was like dumbfounded. I'm like, why on earth will you flip a piston? For performance reasons? Okay, well, I don't see, like the first time I heard that, I say it doesn't make any sense. So since it didn't make any sense for me, I'm just gonna take, okay, you flip it and you make power. I'm not gonna take just that. I'm like, you know what? I have to find out why it makes power. So I did that. I went on a quest and started doing a lot of it. It's been years, back when I started doing that. A couple of years back, I would say like what, 3 years ago? Yeah, 3 years ago. And I just started to do some research. I found this scientific paper from the University of Vietnam that was very helpful. And it gave me, in the paper, it gives you some type of calculations that they use to show how the piston pin offset helps your compression ratio, your displacement volume, and also your stroke. They also did this the test of calculating the thermodynamics associated with those changes. And what I read and what I found out, it was just exactly what I thought it was. Flipping the piston is the wrong thing to do. I know, a lot of people say, well, it makes more power, and because this guy did it, and Smoky Unix said, and Smoky Unix has been wrong a lot of times. I'm a fan of Smoky Unix because he was a wise man. He was very trickery. He used a lot of trickery to fool people. As a matter of fact, I use a lot of his trickery when I used to do go-karting. When I did a setup that I was pretty fast at the track, I would cover for example, the rear sprocket. I want people to get their attention at the rear sprocket to see what I had there, when the actual trickery was somewhere else. So that came from him. I learned that from him. So he's very wise-minded, and I really respect that. So, but when it comes to to a lot of people, including me, I could be wrong in a lot of things. So was he. So this is one of the instances where he was wrong. And I say he was wrong because I did the math according to the paper, and it came out right. And I was so impressed that that was put there. And what really struck me was, why did anybody, has done some research and figured things out to show otherwise, that the reversing the piston doesn't make power. Actually, it kills power. It takes compression away, it takes stroke away, and it takes volume away. And not only that, but if you compare a reverse piston engine versus a offset engine, the non-offset engine will have more compression, more stroke, and more displacement than the one with reverse piston offset. So I know it's hard to swallow, but the math is math. So besides the paper from the University of Vietnam, I also found I also use two calculators. I found one that it was very, very accurate. That you can calculate piston speed piston position below, TDC at every crank angle, from 1 to 300 to 720. And also the one that, the cherry on top was that I found another calculator was given to me by a gentleman that it was, I'm very thankful for that, because, he just gave it to me. And this is the same calculator type that Cosworth uses to build their engines. So not only, I'm not saying this is what I think. I'm using three things. I'm using the paper from the University of Vietnam. I'm using a very respectable calculator that I found on an engine builder's website, and also this other calculator that was given to me by this gentleman that tells me that this is the same calculator, and this one includes piston offset. The second one calculator doesn't include piston offset. So you can, in this one, you can put any piston offset you want, and it'll take it into the calculations. This one doesn't. I have to do this by hand. This one it can do everything by itself, but this one actually takes the piston offset, so I don't have to do it by hand anymore. So I have three proofs, to corroborate my findings. One of the things that I found, it was very, very interesting, is that when you do the piston offset negative, which is, let's say if the crankshaft is rotating this way, negative offset it means you put the offset against crankshaft rotation, so you're moving it back. Positive, that means you're moving it forward, and that's flipping the piston. Positive. So if you hear me saying negative, that means against crankshaft rotation, and if you hear me saying positive, is with crankshaft rotation, which is the same as flipping the pistons. So the one thing that I found that was very interesting is like using piston pin offset against crankshaft rotation, it gives it a different dimension, per se. For example, a long rod motor, it dwells on top of the center, it goes down slow, and 90 degrees, it speeds up and goes to bottom of the center, and speeds up again, and then gets to 90 and slow down, and goes to top of the center, slow down, and takes its time dwelling, The short rod does completely the opposite. It comes, top of the center, fast to 90, starts slowing down at 90, goes to bottom of the center, take its time to bottom of the center. In other words, it dwells at bottom of the center, opposite to the long rod. It comes to 90 and it speeds up, and then it goes. Now, the negative offset has a different dimension to that, and that is that it changes the speed of the downward and the upward motion. So when you give a negative offset, right, the geometry now goes faster going down, right? It dwells in bottom of the center, it goes fast, and it starts slowing down going upwards. Where if you flip it around and you give it a positive offset, it does the opposite. It goes down slow, and it goes up fast. It goes down slow, and it goes up fast. If you give it negative offset, it does the opposite. It goes up slow, and it comes down fast. Up slow, down fast. So we have 4 strokes, right? So that means that if you have a negative offset, you have the intake and the power stroke, downward motion, fast, and that's a plus, right? And if you flip the piston around, you have the opposite. You have slow downward motion, which means slows down your power up, implementation, and your intake. Now you have to have super precise head work to have that fuel charge pulled in, because of the, slowing down the piston even more against a zero offset. So I thought that was pretty interesting. So enough talking. Now let's go to the calculators. All right, guys, this is one of the calculators that I use. This one is the one that has piston pin offset. As you can see here, I have it right now at 0. And if we put pay close attention to the position. It says position inches. That means how deep in the bore per crank degree the piston travels versus a determined piston offset. Right now this is 0. That means they're equal. So as you can see, they're exactly the same at 1247, at 1247, at 22, 156, 156, and 143, 143. It keeps going down, and it's the same exact thing as even all the way down to 360. See 33, 33 at 352, 21, 21, and so forth. So let's give it a offset of 60 thousandths. See what happens. Before I keep going, this is my engine here. This is a 3.31 stroke. The rod length is 5.4, and the RPM that we're running it to calculate these numbers is a 7,000. So 60 thousandths, you notice that it doesn't have a minus sign. This means it is the 60 thousandths of positive offset, which means the offset it goes with crankshaft rotation in the same direction. So what happens here? If we look at starting from 2 degrees, at 2 degrees we have 1,000 here. 1,000 here doesn't change, right? Now look at 3. At 2 degrees, this is 3,000 below deck. This one is 2,000. Let's go a little bit further down. At 40 degrees, we have 0.49. This one is 0.48. Let's go to 90. 90 degrees. 1.9. 1.8. 1.909. 1.896. So what's the difference between those two? Let's see. A 90, that is right here, you see it? Is 13 thousandths of an inch difference in piston position below the deck. So what does that tell you? That tells you that the 60 thousandths of offset going with crankshaft rotation, which is, this is the version of the flipped piston, like Smoking Unix said, as the engine picks up speed and starts to go down compared to the 0 offset, 267, 259, this one has traveled less down the bore than the 0 offset. So if we do some calculations, we can see that at 90, we have about, what? Let me see, 1.909 minus 1.896. That's about 12 thousandths. Let's see, differences. 90, yeah, 13,000. You see that? So we have lost 13 thousandths of an inch of stroke. Okay? Of stroke. Now, how is that possible? Well, because we flip the piston. Now, what happens if we put it the other way? If we put the 60 thousandths, let's see what's the bar. Sorry, let's see it. 0.060. If we put the 60 thousandths against crankshaft rotation, in other words, to the other side, so the opposite happens. So you have here 4 degrees, you have 5 thousandths of an inch of travel. Here you have 7 thousandths, and it keeps growing dynamically. At 8 degrees, here we have 21 thousandths. Here we got 24 thousandths, and so forth and so forth. So if we go to 90, let's see, 90, it's right here. It's 1.909, and the negative offset, which is the non-flipped offset, it is 1.93. So what would be the difference of those two? Let's see. Look at that. That's 26 thousandths of an inch. Okay. Now let's see how that affects. Let's see how those changes, how those numbers affect velocity, affect compression, and also affects displacement. All right, guys, so let's see how this piston offset against crankshaft rotation, that's why it has a minus, like I explained before, affects stroke. So to corroborate that, we're going to go to here. We're going to go to 90 degrees of crank angle. Right, see the difference? 1.909, 1.934. So let's look at the difference. At 90, we got 0.0257, 0.026, 26 thousandths. Right, now let's go to another calculator. Here, I increased the stroke to, I added the 26 thousandths to the 3.31, and it comes out to rounding it off, it's 3.84, which is 26 thousandths. So let's go to 90. So those two numbers should match. They should be very close if that's the case. So if we go to 90 degrees of crankshaft rotation, 90, where are you? You're here. Okay. 1.9347. So it is exactly the same. The reason it's not exactly the same is because, you know, they round off. So it is, guys. So it actually added 26 thousandths of stroke, which also adds volume. Okay, so if we take, for example, the 26 thousandths, a height of a cylinder by the diameter, that's what we get in one cylinder, extra. Okay, 0.460 cubic centimeters. All right. Now, if we try the offset reversed, which is 13 thousandths. Uh-oh, what happened here? 13 thousandths. It's only 2.39, but remember, we're gonna subtract this from the zero offset, and that will become the positive offset piston pin. So as you can see, guys, I don't know about you, but the one thing I learned from this is that you know, smoking unit was wrong, and I believe that as far as the crank angle, you know, if you flip the piston to take rad angularity, for example, remember this one will tell you the rad angle of the rod. So let's take a look at that. So let's put the positive offset, which was what, 3.30, right? Crank, that's minus 13 thousandths. Okay, calculate. Let's go to 90 degrees, which would be the highest rod angularity. And we have 17.79 of rod angle, right? 17.79, remember that number. Now let's go and change it to the other way around. Let's put the piston with the offset facing the other way, which is adding 26 thousandths, like we calculated before. Calculate. What do we have? We have, drum roll, 18.15. All right. So how does that work? So if we take this wheel, right, half of the stroke, for example, from here to here, 1 something inches, we had what, 17, that's 15, 17, something like that. And this one is what, 18? It's only 1 more degree. So what I'm trying to tell you is that the amount of friction that the piston is going to have on the walls, as far as how many horsepower it's going to lose because of friction, it doesn't make any sense. It does not make any sense. So, but let's do a resume of the stuff that we have addressed today. All right, guys. So this is a summary which I made that explains what we learned today. So here is a piston. Is a returning assembly without offset. Is, you have the pin right in the middle. So the original stroke is 3.31. The new stroke doesn't change, it's the same 3.31, and added stroke is 0 because of the change. We give it a negative offset, which means it rotates this way, but we move the pin back, which is negative 60 thousandths, and from 3.31 inches of stroke, it jumps up to 3.34. And that added stroke is 26 thousandths of an inch, like we learned. When it comes to the positive offset, like we mentioned, the rotation is this way, and we move the pin with crankshaft rotation, right? Now, it went from the original stroke, 3.31, it went to 3.30, so we lost 13 thousandths of an inch of stroke. Because of that, we also lost velocity of piston speed. For example, between the offset against crankshaft rotation, the negative one, it gained 63 feet per minute against the 0 offset, and the positive offset pin lost 84 feet per minute against the negative offset pin, right? So as you can see, flipping the piston does not make any sense. If we keep going down the list, distance, this one was 1.91. This is a 90 degrees, 90 degrees of crankshaft. This is 1.91 inches down below deck. This is 1.93 inches below deck, and this is 1.89 inches below deck, as you can see. This one lost displacement volume. As we can see here, the volume was 351.24 cubic centimeters. This one is 354.92, and this one is 347.57. So you can see the flipped piston has less volume than the 0 offset piston. All right. So this is what you lose against. This is only for one cylinder. When you multiply it by 6, this is what you lose. So this one lost 44 cubic centimeters against this one, against the negative offset. So as you can see, guys, flipping the pistons doesn't make any sense. I don't know why other people try to tell us different. Thanks God for the internet. I'm not any kind of engineer. I'm not any kind of master. I haven't written any books, anything of that nature. But I do want to want to thank the people that helped me on this, which is Jean-Louis Janiveral. He gave me the calculator with the offset piston calculator that also Cosworth uses something very similar to this, if not the same. He explained to me. All right, guys, now that we have verified how the piston pin offset affect stroke either way, negative by adding stroke and negative by taking away stroke from 0. Now let's see how that same stroke affects, and that offset affects displacement and compression ratio. So these are the parameters: 6 cylinders, bore diameter, the stroke at 0, piston pin offset is 3.31. So let's see what the displacement and compression ratio are. So we got engine volume is 3652. That's 3,652 cubic centimeters. And this is, we can say it's a 3.7. That's what the engine is mathematically is. And the static compression ratio is 11.60, let's say. Right now, what happens when we take 13 thousandths off by giving 60 thousandths of offset going with crankshaft rotation or positive? This is what happens to the compression and the displacement volume. Remember, we have 3652, now it's 3641, now it's at 36, it's not 37, as you can see. And the static compression ratio is 11.57 instead of 11.60, so it went down. So it's also true if you flip it around. Let's give it 26 thousandths. That's minus 60 thousandths of piston pin offset from 0. And that gives us, look at that, 3685. Now it's a true 37. And look at the compression ratio, 11.69. It had a 0.94 points, right? 0.094 points. So as you can see, guys, reversing the piston to give it a positive offset is not the thing to do. So thank you, guys. We have reached the end of the video, and now the takeaway from this is do not believe everything they tell you. Take it with a grain of salt. But, do your research, read, look into things. I don't know. Today we have Google, we have the internet. Back in the smoking unit times, he didn't have that. We didn't have that. So whatever he said, it was put in stone, and some people just still follow it today. And when it came to me, I had to find out why, and this is what I found out. So what we learned today, guys, was that positive offset is a wrong thing to do. It lowers your engine displacement, your engine stroke, and your compression ratio. Negative offset does completely the opposite. It increases your compression ratio, your displacement, and your stroke. It also, positive offset slows down your the TDC to the BDC time, and shortens your BDC to TDC time. So, and the negative offset does completely the opposite. It accelerates TDC to BDC and slows down BDC to TDC, which has a lot of advantages also, because it reduces detonation chances, and it also, you gain power by slowing it down. It doesn't compress as fast, so there's other more advantages to having the piston offset negative. What else we take from today? Let's see. Oh, okay. Another aspect that I didn't mention earlier, and let me mention it now, is that the more the lesser the route ratio with the negative offset, the more the advantage you're gonna have, the more the better result you're gonna have. So in other words, a long rod motor, if you give it negative offset, it'll give you advantage. But if you take the same long rod and make it short, you have even a more advantage because you put more angularity on it. As far as friction is concerned, people are concerned, oh, it's gonna heat up the walls. The angularity, the crank angle degrees, like we saw in the previously in the video, it's not much, unless you're like this, but that's mechanically impossible. So to conclude, I want to read what the paper from the University of Vietnam mentioned in their the research. So for that, I'm going to put my readers on. So let's see what were the conclusions were. And I'm quoting, right? Quote, conclusions. Modifying the engine by offsetting the piston to move in the reversing direction against crank rotation could enable the piston, the connecting rod, and the crank to form a quick return mechanism. This would be beneficial as it could increase the stroke of the engine while the displacement volume and the compression ratio also increased as well. A thermodynamic effect then was created as the indicated work gained from the engine increased. The movement of the quick return mechanism could reduce the time used in the intake stroke and the power stroke, but increase the time used in the compression stroke and the exhaust stroke, leading to an increase in the net indicated power. End of quote. As you can see, guys, this video is not about what I said, what I think it is, what I believe it is. My gut told me since the beginning of my research, this was what I was gonna find, and it was right. They were right. So we learn from these guys. We keep moving forward. I like to learn a lot, so that's why I like to read and do research. So thanks for watching, guys, and we'll see you later. Ciao.